This is the Eagle Eye Podcast with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. When you think of the Combine, is there anything that stands out to you from covering that event?
I really enjoyed covering the Combine, and not so much for, the player, the workouts or any of that, but just because it was always a good chance to see people that you don't really get to see too much. And I remember we were all walking to lunch, like 15 of the Eagles beat writers with Derek Boyko, the old PR guy, and John Harbaugh was walking down the street. And this is in 2013. This is right after he won the Super Bowl. And Harbaugh was just walking down the street by himself. Not one person recognized him. As far as non-football people, the football people knew who he was, but he's just walking down the street and he's like, "Hey guys," we're like, "Congratulations, on the Super Bowl." Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was just like such a random thing. But my favorite memory of the Combine is, remember Will Rackley from Lehigh, the offensive lineman. Will Rackley, I think he ended up being a third-round pick of the Jaguars. Will Rackley went to Lehigh, and when we were talking to him, he was talking about how he was like a photography major, and his senior project was photographing the steel mills. They also work security at Eagles practice, which is interesting. But and he said Juan Castillo would always work with him and help him out and stuff, which was really cool. But Will Rackley's senior photography project was shooting this old steel mills, and there's now like a casino there and stuff like that. But they're incredible structures, and I've always been, when we would go up there, I was mesmerized by the old steel mills, just the scale of them. And his project was to kind of photograph them and capture the grand scale of them. And he gave me the link to his senior project, and the photos were incredible. So I thought, I have a really good story here on this prospect. He's a legit prospect. He ended up being a third-round pick and photographing steel mills. And so I put in a call to his photography professor. This is like a Dave Zangaro move right there, right? Put in the call to his photo professor. I talked to his coach, and I talked to the kid after his presser. I talked to him off the podium for a while. I had everything I needed. I just needed to talk to his photo professor. The dude refused to call me back. And I gave him 3 days. I must have called him 6 times, and he never called me back. And I'm still pissed at that guy. And then a week after the Combine, I get a call yeah, this is Will Rackley's photo professor. I'm like, dude, the story ran a week ago. And he was he was too important for me, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. So I don't know. I just look back, and every time I hear Will Rackley's name, I think I did do the story, but it would have been better with the professor's insight into it. But he was a pretty good photographer. I think his NFL career only lasted a couple of years, so hopefully he's making a living out of taking pictures.
There you go. I like that. You should have shown up at the school, press pass in hand, knock on the professor's door.
Well, I mean, I was in Indianapolis, so
would have been tough.
I couldn't have done that, but it just struck me funny is that I could I would say 80-90% of the people we call you back, whether you call former players and former coaches, and it's part of our job. We call these guys and they call us back, and if I need to reach Nick Sirianni, I can get him on the phone. But this photography professor wouldn't call me back. It's that just struck me as it was the same. It was the same year I spent 2 hours in Andy Reid's hotel room. I'm I can hang out in Andy Reid's hotel room for 2 hours. I can't get a photo professor from frickin' Lehigh to call me. Still pisses me off.
I like that. My favorite Combine memory was a very public one. But do you remember when the Eagles had the coin toss against the Colts?
Yeah.
Back in, what was that, 2017? It ended up being the Derek Barnett pick, but they had to flip a coin, and they did it. It was hilarious the way they did it. The NFL realized how silly it was, but they leaned into it, which I appreciated. And they had both GMs on the stage. It was Howie and what was it? The Colts? It was the Colts. It was Chris Ballard. And they flipped the coin. The Eagles win, Howie gives like a fist pump and then like celebrates with Doug Peterson. It was really funny. It was a funny moment. And the Eagles took that was it was actually the Vikings pick because that was a Sam Bradford trade pick. They ended up using it for Barnett, and the Colts took Malik Hooker with the next pick, who, you know, a lot of injuries in his career. But I remember that being really funny. And my other combine memory was there was a, I want to be really vague here. I don't want to give anything away, but I was trying to nail down a story several years ago, and I was kind of stalking someone to get an answer, and I couldn't find them. I was waiting where I thought they'd be. I waited for like a couple hours, and I'm like, this person's not returning my calls. They're not where I think they're going to be. Forget it. I'm going to breakfast. So I go to Cafe Patachu, which is my favorite restaurant in Indy. I sit down. They seat me right next to the guy I needed to talk to. I was like, here we go. And I was able to get the story. But it was a good lesson of like, when it's not working, just give up and go get breakfast.
That's a good one. Yeah. There you go.
So, Rube, as we look ahead to this year's combine, are there some things that you're kind of thinking about and storylines that the Eagles fans should be keeping an eye on?
I think there's a lot of agents and a lot of people in the league that think the combine is antiquated and has run its course, and that there's a lot more value in pro days. I mean, the players get to control everything in their pro days, where the league gets to control everything. And but I don't know. Do you think there's still value in the way they do it? I think the most value is in the teams meeting with the players, the interviews. I don't know. I was
teams still find a ton of value in it.
Yeah. I just don't know players now are so trained to do well in the drills. I mean, from the time they're done playing in college till the combine, they're basically training for the combine. They're not training to be football players. So you end up with, workout warriors and guys who have mastered the art of the, 2-cone drill or whatever it is. But that doesn't measure them as football players. So I don't know. I'm sure there's still value in it, but I know there's a lot of agents who think it's kind of run its course.
I really don't. I think it's very valuable because it puts them on a level playing field. The pro days, you get some wacky numbers out of those pro days.
Like Jalen Reagor's 40 time.
Like Jalen Reagor's everything from that pro day.
Did he run like a 3.8 at his pro day?
But it's a chance to really see them all back to back, and it does put them in a high pressure situation. But playing football is a high pressure situation, so I like it. I think there is a lot of value in it, and then the meetings with teams are super valuable. And not to give another story about the guy in Indy, but that's where they spent so much time with him in Indianapolis back in 2016. It was intense. There was work with the coaching staff. He met with Jeff Lurie. They had him meet with a sports psychologist. They put in their work with him back then, and that's how they decided to draft him. So again, not looking at the outcome, looking at the process, it's important to these teams.
I would like to see. I wonder if that sports psychologist still has their notes. I'd like to see if there's any red flags in there. Yeah. No. There is value. There's definitely value. I wonder how long the emphasis will be on the drills. I don't know. You just love covering the combine so much. You just want to keep.
It's going. A long week.
It is. I did it. I probably covered like maybe 5 combines, and I never saw one nice day in Indianapolis. There's been some hailstorms and craziness, but I do like Indianapolis more than you do. I think you're not a big Indy fan, are you?
No.
Yeah, I don't mind Indianapolis. I like the canal trail that they built through the whole city. That's really neat. Yeah. They have nice murals. You're a mural guy. Have you walked or jogged on that Canal Trail.
I've been there.
It's beautiful, man. It goes actually. The end of it is right at the NCAA headquarters.
Yeah,
and it's right where Indiana. What's that university? Indianapolis University at something or other. But it's where the 1988 Olympic trials were. Is right at the end of that trail, the track. It's where Flojo set the world record, the disputed world record in the 100.
Why was it disputed?
Well, because it was a windy day and it was wind. Her race was wind dated, but the wind gauge mysteriously was listed as 0 wind, and she ran like 10:49, which blew away the world record. It should have been wind dated, but it wasn't. There's still an asterisk next to it in the list of world records, and then she mysteriously retired. But whatever. I don't want to go too far off topic, but I do like Indianapolis. There's a nice zoo there. You ever been to the zoo?
No.
There's a minor league stadium there right by the Colts Stadium. It's a nice place. Went to a game there once. Got the Canal Trail, some good restaurants. It's good downtown. I spent 10 days in Indianapolis for the Olympic trials in '88. Covering Carl Lewis and those, a lot of those guys for the Burlington County Times. Had a great time.
Indianapolis is just a giant convention center with the same restaurant like 20 times.
The same restaurant?
It's like the same restaurant. Steakhouse.
It's not a bad thing. Now you're anti-steakhouse.
I'm not going to rail against Indianapolis anymore. I'm trying to be nice.
The convention bureau is going to see this podcast and they're going to
they're going to kick me out of town the second I
get
there.
They're not going to let you off the plane.